Bhagavan, over thousands of years, mankind's thirst for freedom has been channeled into religion, which ironically has often become the basis for separation and conflict. In the kind of golden age that you're describing, would all of these religions just disappear?
Yes. In the kind of golden age that we are talking about, I don't see any place for religion. Spirituality, of course, would be there, but religion as we know it today would be completely transformed into something else.
What would that something else look like?
That something else would just be a spiritual experience, that's all.
But some people really feel connected to Jesus and love Jesus. Some people feel very connected to the Prophet Muhammad. And would all of this be gone, or will people still have
Well, they would still feel connected to Jesus Christ and the Prophet, but in a very different way. It will not be a belief in Jesus Christ. They would actually see and talk and walk with Christ. And the same would happen maybe with the Prophet. So that would be their experience. It would not be based on beliefs. It would be based on real experience.
Bhagavan, we're talking about religion. For you, what does the word God mean? People have different gods. Is there one God? Are there many gods?
Yeah. I often say that I'm God. Now, it has to be carefully understood. To me, all life is one. There's only one life. That which is flowing through you, through me, through your wife, through the lion, the elephant, the tiger, the ant, through the trees, through the sun and the moon, to the universe. The same one life is expressing itself through all these forms. And that life is what I call God. So I am God, you are God, the ant is God, the elephant is God, the one in the prison is God, the crook is God, the murderer is God, the saint is God, the sage is God. These are the different manifestations of God. But when God manifests as a crook, we don't worship him. But when he manifests as a saint or a sage, we worship him. So to me, there is no creator God, a God who creates. God has become all this. He's not different from creation. It's like the spider which brings out the web from its own body. It's God who has become all this. So when I am helping a beggar on the road, I'm only helping beggar God. God is suffering there as a beggar, no? So I have got to help him out because I see that I and he are one. So I'm helping myself. That's why I tell people, look, don't talk to me of love and compassion. I'm not helping you. I'm helping myself. You're not different from me. It's a living experience. That is my reality. And that's why I say I am God. And I maintain that all people can get to this state.
I see.
That this should be man's natural state.
I see.
But for the moment, the one who can see that, experience it that way, we could call him God. And anybody else who can experience that way, he is God. And if all can experience that way, then everybody is God. That is the ultimate objective. That all people should experience God everywhere and that they are that God. That there's nothing else but God only. How could there be anything else other than God? It's just impossible. All that there is has to be God. So whether you talk of your will or the divine will, your will also is God's will, divine will also is God's will. There's only God's will, that is all. If I'm going to scratch, that's God's will. If I'm going to have a negative thought, that's again God's will. There's nothing else but God's will. You know? When you come to that realization that you know that you alone exist. Of course, you don't feel lonely, but there's a certain aloneness. Because you are everything, no? There's no second person there. That's why we say Advaya, non-two, from which comes the word Advaita, you know. So this is a real experience. It is within the realm of possibility. It is not fiction. It is not philosophical speculation. I'm talking about something which can be your day-to-day living experience. That is where the Deeksha should take you ultimately. That's when you can boldly say, I am God. That's why I take that stand, I am God. And that has been my feeling ever since childhood.
Yes. So when you say, I am God,
yes,
it's saying, I am God and you are God too.
Yes.
Only you may not recognize it
You
right
may not
now.
recognize it,
I
that
see.
is all.
Yes.
It is not that I created this universe. I have become all this. I have become the leper, the crook, the beggar, the saint, the sage, everything, So I am the killer, the killing, and the killed. It's all one and the same. And that is my experience. And I can't say, aha, I am God and you're not God. No, it makes no sense. I'm only everything. But this can be everybody's experience because you are also God. No? The only thing is you're not seeing it that way, I am seeing it that way. And if I can see it that way, why not you? And there are people now today who see exactly the same way as I and Amma see it. So it is beginning to spread now. That is what I would say is the ultimate human destiny.
So, Bhagavan, even though everything is God, yet we can also speak of a relationship with God.
Yes.
What is the relationship between the incarnate and God?
See, to me, since I am everything, there's no question of my relating to God. Such a relationship cannot exist because nothing other than me exists for me. I can only say I am God, that's all. When you get there, and then when you wish certain things, they do happen. You come to me with a problem, I listen to it, I know I'm experiencing that problem, it's me who's experiencing, and I would like it to change, and it changes. That is all. That's how the miracles happen. There's no question of my relating to God, because there's nobody other than me as far as I'm concerned.
That's your reality.
Yes.
For, let's say, for one of your dasas.
Yes.
Or for one of your acharyas.
Yes.
Or for a Deeksha giver.
Yes.
Or for anybody.
Yes.
There is, somehow it seems that there is the realization of what I am is God, but there is also a relationship with God at the same time. Is that possible?
Yeah, that is only up to a point. But then if they go beyond that, it's exactly the same. But some choose to stop there for various reasons. But otherwise, there are also those who do not make this distinction between themselves and Amma Bhagavan, no?
So they would not have a relationship with you, they would just
They would say,
you.
we are Amma Bhagavan, that's all. They will actually say, if you ask them, who are you? They would say, I am Amma, I am Bhagavan. That's what they would say. You might think it is arrogance, but it's not so. That is their reality. Amma Bhagavan are not the physical thing actually, When you say I am Amma Bhagavan, you mean to say, I am this universe. I am everything. It is not a philosophical hypothesis. It is no speculation, it is no belief. It's a living experience.
Bhagavan, when you speak about God, as in the way you do,
Yes.
is there also something which is not God, which is like the opposite of God? Like in Christian tradition, they speak of the devil.
Yes.
Different traditions have the idea of something opposing God or something interfering with God. Is there something like that?
Yes. If you bring somebody and tell me that he is the devil, I would say, yes, he is the devil, and I am also the devil. I can't make a distinction, it's not possible. I am only he. I only become all this. But somehow there I am manifesting like that, and somehow I am manifesting like this here. So I am only that. I am the crook, I am the saint, everything, that is how I experience things from moment to moment. Not that sometimes it is there, sometimes it is not there. That's how it is all the time. So I can't say, he is the devil, go and hang him. I can't do that. I can't judge that way, It's like judging myself. How could I do it? It's not possible. It's a totally different reality. The only thing is, everybody could get there. Otherwise, I won't be talking about it. Now, why I'm talking about it is because I know people can get there.
So actually, you came to this interview to be interviewed by yourself and filmed by yourself.
I am interviewing myself. One part of me is interviewing another part of me. That is it. One part of me, which is not experiencing it that way, is interviewing another part, which is experiencing it that way.
So it's a one-man band, really.
Yes.
Bhagavan, if there is a surrender to God,
Yes.
handing over to God.
Yes.
How does somebody know that they are surrendering to the will of God and not just to another part of their own mind?
Yes, see, you are only surrendering to another part of you because there cannot be another. When you say I'm surrendering to God, you surrendering to that part of you which we call God, because we call that the auspicious, the sacred, and you are surrendering to it. You're not surrendering to a third person or an alien. You're surrendering to your own higher self. That is all there is to it. And because this lower self is very mischievous, is causing trouble, when we say surrender, it is not in a very cheap way, that you're a slave. It's not like that. You're just putting it aside because it's getting problems, that's all.
So let's imagine that somebody comes here and takes the 21-day course.
Yes.
Or even they just receive some Deeksha.
Yes.
And this connection starts to open
Yes.
to the deeper dimension, to the God dimension.
Yes.
And then, let's say they are in their home and some voice commands, it's time to eat a lot of ice cream.
Yes.
They say, eat ice cream.
Yes.
And they go and they eat the ice cream. How would they know if this command is coming from the God dimension
Yes.
or just from the addictions of the mind?
If it is coming from the higher dimension, there is a very nice feeling, especially in the chest region. Now, if it is coming from some lower dimension, there will be an uneasy feeling in the chest region. And if you begin to notice this difference, you would soon be able to distinguish between the two.
I see. So there's a physiological marker.
Marker, yes.
Okay, that's very handy tip
Yes.
for all of us. Bhagavan, if someone has not yet completely merged with God so that they see, I am God, I am Amma
Yes.
Bhagavan,
Yes.
then what kind of relationship is possible with God? And particularly I want to ask you, people come here to Oneness University with all kinds of different faiths and religions. Some people are Christians, some are Muslims, some are shamans
Yes.
from different tribes. How can we enjoy this relationship with God?
It is left to the individual. If Christians come, they very often bring the picture of Christ and place it at the altar. If the Muslims come, they bring a painting of certain names of Allah. That's how they do it. And among the Hindus, they could be worshipping many gods. So the freedom of choice is left to them. And there are atheists who come, who merely relate to the universe. So depending on which God you're relating to, your relationship arises. It is dependent on that. So it could take any form depending on your personality, your conditioning, your background. So all that is an individual affair. So we don't interfere with that. We only tell people have some kind of relationship. If you do not believe in God, try to relate to the universe. That's how the whole program is conducted. And there are some who relate to Amma Bhagavan. The freedom is theirs.
To any seekers or disciples of other masters, that one of the most important parts of this process, that it didn't in any way compromise my own connection to my own master. And I think that's maybe good for all people who are watching this to know, that it's not in any way a separate idea or an ideal. And through the whole process, my master has been very much with me, and still is, and always will be, of course. So I think I just wanted to say that for anybody who might be wondering how, if their master somehow is compromised. No.
Deeksha seems to be the primary technology that is being used here, but also there are devotional singing sessions, bhajans.
Yes.
People of different faiths are encouraged to pray. Is there a place for devotion and bhakti in all of this?
Yes. We believe that everything helps. Prayer, worship, meditation, rituals, various practices. We believe that everything could help you. The only thing with Deeksha is it is very powerful and it acts very fast. But any practice does help.
So, what would be the relationship between Deeksha and devotion, Deeksha and prayer, Deeksha and devotional singing?
Yes, that again is left to the individual. There are certain individuals who have a predisposition towards devotion. There are others who do not have such a disposition. It's all up to the individual. We, in fact, do not tell people do this or do that. We tell people do whatever you are comfortable with. It's up to you. And you can take it from any scripture, from any religion, or from any master. Total freedom is given to the person. The only thing we tell is that if you find something is not working for you, don't waste your time, including what we have spoken. If it doesn't help you, just forget about it.
So you give tremendous freedom then, it
Yes,
sounds like.
that's very sacred and very important for us.
Why is that so important? It's unusual in a spiritual teaching, a spiritual movement, to give people complete freedom. Usually there are rules.
Yes, because the state that we are talking about is actually that. It is nothing but a state of freedom, So we have to start there. You can't curtail a person and then say ultimately you'll take him to freedom. So you have to start with freedom, It's the first step and the last step for us. That's very, very important for us.
Bhagwan, one of the chants or songs which is one hears all the time here is the Moola Mantra. Could you explain what is the Moola Mantra and how it came into existence?
The Moola Mantra came through as a revelation. That is, nobody thought about it. It just happened that 3-4 of our people, they all heard it internally at the same time. And then, of course, we have what is called the Antaryaman. That is, we can always refer back to the Antaryaman and find out what is the meaning.
Antaryaman is the indweller.
The indweller.
It's what we call inner guide sometimes.
The inner guide, yes. So the indweller or the inner guide, it gave us the explanation. And it said, use this as the Moola Mantra. So ever since it has got stuck. And basically what it means is that what is there is existence, intelligence, and bliss.
Satchitananda means
it means existence, consciousness, or intelligence, and bliss.
I see.
It is not just consciousness, it is intelligent consciousness, because it has intelligence in it. That is the source of all things. And then this becomes Parabrahma. Parabrahma means it is the next level of manifestation, or it becomes the universe. And then this Parabrahma becomes Purushottama. That is, it becomes like one being. That is the next stage of evolution. Then Paramatma. Then it becomes the indweller in everybody, so as to control and move the creation. And that finally manifests in living beings, whom we call the avatar. That is what the mantra means. It's an evolution in consciousness, how the one becomes the many in stages.
What effect does it have on us to chant this mantra?
This Moola Mantra, it heals people and it elevates their levels of consciousness. It does miracles for them. All kinds of things have been reported by merely chanting this mantra. So there are so many miracles actually.
Does God, as we relate to God, does God have a masculine and a feminine aspect? I notice that some images of God are masculine, some are feminine.
Yes. So God himself is everything. There's no question of his being exclusively masculine or feminine. But if a person so chooses, then he can have a masculine God or a feminine God. It's again a matter of choice. But if you were to say, and who is God? God is everything, you know. So we can't say he's masculine or feminine.
But both are there.
Yes, both are there.
And would our experience of God be different with a masculine-looking deity or feminine-looking deity?
It will be very different.
How would it be different?
If your God were masculine, then he could behave in a very masculine way. He might not behave like a mother. He might not respond to your prayers fast, and he might not be that kind also. But if it were a feminine God, the responses would be much faster, much kinder.
So, do we need both, or do we choose, or do some people need one, some the other?
Yes. Now, I know of a person who actually loves Shiva. He's a worshipper of Shiva. And when he does worship Shiva, he becomes poor. Because Shiva is known to take away wealth. So once he's become sufficiently poor, he switches over to another god called Vishnu and becomes prosperous. Because Vishnu wears jewels, he's full of prosperity, and he worships that god and becomes prosperous. But his heart is with Shiva. So this man keeps swinging between both. So it all depends on the kind of god that you worship. If you want courage, then the Hindus worship Anjaneya, or the fierce form of Kali. So depending on the need, they worship the different god, you know. So these gods actually are some kind of archetypes, and that gets activated in them, and accordingly things start happening. So it is left in the individual's hands. That's why we say create your own god.
Create your own God.
Yes, that's
Did
one
you
of the
say
teachings.
more about that?
Yes, that is, we say design your god, masculine or feminine or both, and friendly, or one who is tough, or one who would quickly answer your prayers or take a longer time to answer, one who might need strong worship or rituals or prayer or just a friendly chat. We say design this. Now, mostly people can design only according to their personality. Otherwise, it's a false design. So they have to first make some changes in their own personality, then design the God, which will really work. So it much depends on you.
So does that mean a very feminine person would be better off with a feminine deity?
The feminine God.
I see.
He would have more response from the feminine God.
Does that mean that feminine people would respond more to Amma and masculine people would respond more to Bhagavan?
It could be that way. It also so happens some people are so masculine, they have the need for the feminine. They also would respond better to Amma. It can be that way also.
So it could be a balancing.
It could be a balance.
But what I'm hearing you say is that ultimately there is only one godliness, just one.
Yes.
And so all of these are manifestations or faces of that one.
Yes.
That one that is in
that
everything.
one godliness, you know.
Yes.
And that would respond the way you want it to respond. It does not have a stand on its own, of its own, you know. It depends upon what stand you take.
You've said sometimes that you're available for any kind of relationship with people.
Yes.
You're willing to be a father, you're willing to be a friend.
Yes.
Which kind of relationship do you prefer? Is there a kind of relationship you really like to have with people?
I prefer the relationship to be that of a friend. That's what I'm very comfortable with. Treat me as a friend, you know.
Well, you're welcome to come visit our house anytime, Bhagavan.
Yes.
The other interesting thing for me anyway, about religion over the last thousands of years is that it's been very dominated by the masculine psyche.
Yes.
So all of these religions have been founded by men and propagated by men. Do you feel that we are now seeing the possibility of a spirituality that is a balance of masculine and feminine?
Yes, I think what we are going to see would be a very balanced spirituality, because it is again no more based on beliefs but on the actual experience of God. So when that happens, I don't think you can call God either masculine or feminine. So all these things would just disappear because you yourself are not going to be there, which means you can't describe yourself as a male or a female, so much less your God. So all these things would disappear.
But still, when there's been a wave of Dharma emerging in the past, it has generally previously started from one man, either incarnating as an avatar or becoming enlightened. For example, Buddha was a man, Krishna was a man, Rama was a man, I could go on and on. Now we're seeing a wave of Dharma generated from this place, but it's being generated from Amma Bhagavan, a man, at least the appearance of a man and a woman. Is that something particular to this age, that the avataric consciousness is both masculine and feminine?
Well, that would certainly help. But this is an age where people would discover that God is not out there, and that he or she is himself or herself God. That's what is going to happen, not as a belief, but as an actual living experience from moment to moment.
I want to stay with this little thing about women a little more if I can, because there are actually, I believe, a number of traditions which have said that women cannot become liberated, and women cannot spread spirituality. So in many traditions, women have been barred from being priests or imams or whatever. I notice you have male dasas and female dasas. I notice that this course, which has just started here, which is Western students, is much more women than men. So this is something different than we've seen before. How is all of this, how is the way that the Dharma is expressed different when it's expressed through a feminine incarnation?
Yes, in the Dharma here, men and women play an equal role because Amma and myself, we have an equal status. And no one is superior to the other. In fact, in India, they only say Amma Bhagavan. They don't say Bhagavan Amma, you know. So that is so the feminine is given priority. Then we have acharyas. There again, we have female acharyas and male acharyas, female dasas. And generally, the females outnumber the men. So there's a strong feminine order to the whole thing, you know. And there's so many women who have become enlightened. There's so many women who have become good teachers.
And how would that shift from masculine to also including the feminine? How would that change the expression of the Dharma itself?
I think more than the expressions of the Dharma, I think it will influence politics, education, health. Everything would get influenced because it has to balance the male and the female, you know. So it's going to have an effect in every sphere of human activity.
Amma, thank you so much for your willingness to have this interview. I know that it's a very unusual thing. I'm very grateful to you. Amma, you sit in darshan with 10,000 people receiving your darshan, looking at you. When you look from your chair and you see all of these people, what do you see and what do you feel?
వాళ్ళందరినీ చూసినప్పుడు నాకు వాళ్ళంతా నా బిడ్డల్లాగా అనిపిస్తుంది. వాళ్ళందరి కష్ట సుఖాలు నేను అనుభవిస్తూ, వాళ్ళందరికీ క్షేమాన్ని కోరుతూ, బ్లెస్ చేస్తూ, వాళ్ళందరినీ దీవిస్తూ ఉంటాను. వాళ్ళందరి కోరికలన్నీ వస్తారు కదా, దీవిస్తూ ఉంటాను.
Amma, I hear reports of many miracles which happen around you. People become healed of diseases. People have money flowing in their life that was not there before. Relationships get better. When these miracles happen, are you consciously aware of each one, or does it happen spontaneously?
అవును, నాకు అన్నీ తెలుసు. జరిగేదంతా నాకు తెలుసు. కొన్ని నాకు తెలియకుండా జరిగిపోతాయి, నాకు తెలిసి జరుగుతాయి, నేను సంకల్పం తీసుకుంటాను. కొన్ని న్యాచురల్గా ఆటోమేటిక్గా జరిగిపోతాయి. నాకు అన్నీ తెలుసు.
Amma, the divine force expresses itself differently through you than it does through Bhagavan. What is that difference?
అమ్మ భగవాను ఒకటే. భగవంతుడిలో రెండు, ఒక పక్క తల్లిగాను ఒక పక్క తండ్రిగాను ఉంటారు. భగవాను తండ్రిగా వాళ్ళకి అనుగ్రహం ప్రసాదిస్తారు. అమ్మ తల్లిగా వాళ్ళకి కోరికలు అన్నీ, వాళ్ళ ఆశలు, వాళ్ళ ఆరోగ్య సమస్యలు అన్నీ వాళ్ళకి అమ్మ తీరుస్తూ ఉంటుంది. భగవాన్ వచ్చి వాళ్ళని ఎలా పైకి తీసుకెళ్ళాలి, ఎలా ముక్తి మార్గంలోకి తీసుకెళ్ళాలి అని భగవాన్ ఆలోచిస్తూ ఉంటారు. ఎప్పుడు అదే ధ్యానంలో ఉంటారు. అమ్మ వచ్చి ఈ ధ్యానంలో ఉంటుంది, వాళ్ళ కోరికలు తీర్చే ధ్యానంలో ఉంటుంది.
Amma, you have a son, Krishna. I have met him in Los Angeles, and you have also daughter-in-law and grandchild.
Yes, yes.
I met all of them in America. Amma, as a mother and a grandmother, what is your vision for the youth of this planet?
యూత్కి నేను ఇవ్వదలుచుకున్నది ఏమిటంటే, వాళ్ళు హృదయం వికసించాలి. వాళ్ళు వికసించి వాళ్ళు బుర్రతో ఆలోచించి చేయకుండా హృదయంలో ఏం వస్తుందో అదే చేయాలి. అదే నేను ఇవ్వదలుచుకున్న మెసేజ్.
Amma, all over the world, women today are emerging as leaders, and they are getting a level of respect and listening which has not happened before. Women are emerging as political leaders, religious leaders, in all kinds of ways. What is your message to women? There are more than 3 billion women in the world. What is your message to these 3 billion women?
స్త్రీ జన్మ ఎత్తిన తర్వాత తను చదువుకోవాలి బాల్యంగా ఉండేటప్పుడు. తర్వాత వాళ్ళు చదువుకునేటప్పుడే తను తల్లి ఎలా బిడ్డని ఎలా ధరించాలి, గర్భవతి అవ్వాలి, గర్భవతి అవుతుంది కదా, బిడ్డని ఎలా చాకాలి, బిడ్డని ఎలా డెలివరీ చేసుకోవాలి, ఆ బిడ్డని ఎలా చాకాలి, గర్భంలోనూ మళ్ళీ బయట వచ్చిన తర్వాత కూడా ఎలా చాకాలి, ఇవన్నీ తెలుసుకోవాలి వాళ్ళు ఫస్ట్. అంటే వాళ్ళ హృదయం కూడా వికసించాలి. వాళ్ళకి అది అనుభవం ద్వారా వాళ్ళు తెలుసుకోవాలి. తెలుసుకొని అప్పుడు ఒక ఉన్నతమైనటువంటి ఒక మానవుణ్ణి వాళ్ళు సమాజానికి ఇవ్వగలుగుతారు. అప్పుడు కొత్త సమాజంగా అయ్యేదానికి అవకాశం ఉన్నది. స్త్రీకి ఆ విధంగా తయారవ్వాలి.
Amma, you are known as the Divine Mother. What is the Divine Mother?
భగవంతుల్లో 2 భాగాలు ఉన్నాయి కదా, ఒకటి పురుష అంశము, తల్లి స్త్రీ అంశము. ఆ స్త్రీని, ఆ తల్లిని నేనే డివైన్ మదర్ని. నేను వచ్చి భగవంతుడు వచ్చి ముక్తి మీద మానవుడిని ఎలా మార్చాలి, మానవుడికి ఎలా ముక్తి ఇవ్వాలి అని ఆయన నిమగ్నంగా ఉంటారు. నేను వచ్చి మనుషులు లౌకికంగా అయితేనేమి, వరల్డ్లీగా అయితేనేమి, వాళ్ళ కోరికలు, సమస్యలు ఎప్పుడు ఆ నిమగ్నంలో వాళ్ళకి ఎలా తీర్చాలని ఆ నిమగ్నంలో నేను ఉంటాను.
Amma, what is real love? What is real pure love?
ఒక వ్యక్తి నాకే సొంతం అవ్వాలి, నువ్వెవరితో మాట్లాడకూడదు, చేయకూడదు, నువ్వే నాకు సొంతం అవ్వాలి అని ఎక్కువగా బలవంతం చేసేది అది ప్రేమ కాదు. ఎదుటి వ్యక్తిలో కొన్ని మనలో లేని లక్షణాలు వాళ్ళ ఎదుటి వ్యక్తిలో చూసేది, వాళ్ళని లవ్ చేసేది, అది ప్రేమ కాదు. అది కూడా ప్రేమ కాదు. హృదయం వికసించాలి. వికసిస్తే అప్పుడు ఎటువంటి వ్యక్తినైనా సరే, ఆ వ్యక్తి ఎలాగున్నా సరే మనము ప్రేమిస్తూనే ఉంటాం. అదే నిజమైన ప్రేమ. అది కూడా అనుభవం ద్వారానే జరుగుతుంది.
Amma, we live in America. My wife and I, friends, we visit also Europe. How can we cultivate love and compassion so that we treat human beings with the respect they deserve?
ఇది చాలా కష్టకరమైనటువంటి ప్రశ్నే. చెప్పు. ఈ మానవ జాతి అంతా ఒక వ్యక్తే. హోల్ హ్యూమన్స్ అంతా, మానవులందరూ ఒకే వ్యక్తి కిందకి చెందుతుంది. నాలో ఏంటో స్పెషల్గా పోతుంది, నేను చాలా నా ఆలోచనలు, నా దుఃఖమేను, నా ఆలోచనలని మనం అలా అనుకోకూడదు. మానవ జాతి యొక్క దుఃఖమే మన లోపల పోతూ ఉంది. మానవ జాతి యొక్క దుఃఖము మన లోపల పోతూ ఉంది. ఆ దుఃఖాన్ని నువ్వు ఎలా ఫీల్ అవ్వాలంటే కంప్లీట్గా నీకు అనుభవం ద్వారానే నీకు ఆ స్థితి, ఆ లవ్ అంతా వస్తుంది. అనుభవం ద్వారానే తెలుస్తుంది, నీకు అనుభవిస్తేనే తెలుస్తుంది. కాబట్టి ఆ వ్యక్తిలో పోయేది వేరు, నాది వేరు కానే కాదు. అంతా మనుషుల యొక్క దుఃఖమంతా ఒకటే, మనమంతా ఒకటే. అది తెలుసుకుంటే, అది తెలుసుకోవాలంటే అనుభవం ద్వారానే తెలుసుకొని వీలవుతుంది. అప్పుడే కరుణ స్థితి వస్తుంది.
I'd like to ask you about the mind and thought. When anyone is resting in meditation, in the presence, when anyone has received Deeksha, everything is so simple. We just hear the sound, we feel the feelings, everything becomes simple and beautiful. And it really is a mystery. What is this mechanism of mind and thinking that makes things so complicated? Why should it arise when it makes everything not good? It seems a strange phenomenon. What is its source?
It's more a matter of habit, because I have been told that there are certain tribal communities where people are so brought up that the mind hardly ever troubles them. It's become a custom, a habit with the people there. But the only problem is they do not have much worldly contact. As a result, it looks like the mind comes into play only when necessary. Otherwise, the mind is just not interfering with their day-to-day affairs. In a sense, we can say that these people are enlightened. So I think man has got into this habit of using it all the time when it is not really required. That seems to be the basic problem. And if you can be free of the habit, and then you're enlightened.
So could you explain a little more, when you say free of the habit, you don't mean that thought stops, do you? Or do you?
Yes, here again, I would say, to watch your own mind, that also is enlightenment. And there are times when thoughts are flowing at a very slow pace, that also is enlightenment, but probably a deeper state. And there are times when there are no thoughts at all, which is a still deeper state. So it goes on and on that way. So, but you can have all your thoughts, you can have all your conflicts, you can have your mind and still be enlightened if you could watch it as a third person. But of course the higher state is when the thoughts are there, but they are not in conflict. But the still higher state is when thoughts are totally absent. And the still higher state is when all the senses are in a very awakened state. So it goes on that way.
So you've described different states, different stages of awakening.
Yes.
What about the kind of the normal state of humanity where there's just no watching. How do you see that? How would you describe that?
Yes, I would describe a human being who's not watching his own mind, but who has identified himself with the mind and is fully participating within the mind. I would say that he's in prison. He's in a jail, and all his activities is merely decorating the jail, furnishing it with carpets, with air conditioners, with all other kind of gadgets, making his life very comfortable within the jail. Now, I am not opposed to this, and in fact, I do help people to decorate the jail. They come to me with desires for wealth, for car, for bungalows, for this, that, everything, for getting a beautiful girl to be married to, and I keep blessing them for all that. And that is merely decorating the prison. But that's also fine. But the fact is, however much you decorate it, it is still the prison.
Yes.
So there comes a day when he looks out of the window and he says, I want to play out in the meadow, I want to experience the sun, I want to feel the rain. And then he discovers he cannot get out. That's when I would say he becomes a seeker, a spiritual seeker who wants to get out. There's discontent in him. But if he's happy within the jail, then there's no way for me to make him into a seeker. Then I help him to play within the jail. So what we call the 4 purusharthas or objectives in life, artha, kama, dharma, moksha, the first 3 belong to activities within the jail. Artha means wealth. Kama is fulfillment of desires. Dharma means helping others, doing a lot of social work. But all this comes within the jail. I'm not condemning it. I'm not saying it's not good or don't do it. I'm just saying it's all activity within the jail. Make yourself comfortable within the jail. It's fine. But if there comes a time when you say, this is too much, I can't take this any longer, then I'll help you to come out of the jail, come out of the mind.
And is that an either-or thing, that either we're fulfilling desires or we're going for moksha, or could there be liberation and fulfillment of desires at the same time? Could somebody want moksha and a car?
Well, there's absolutely no problem.
Okay.
But the thing is, suppose he's out of the mind,
Yes.
and he wants a car, there's no problem with it. Because he might need a car, he might need a bungalow. For example, you take Mahatma Gandhi, he used to ride in Birla's Rolls Royce every day when he was in Delhi. Though he himself owned nothing, he loved to go for a ride in the Rolls Royce. So that's perfectly fine. So, but we would not strictly call that a desire, you know. But the other person, he would feel very sick if he doesn't get those things. But for the one who's outside the mind, if it comes, it's fine. If it does not come, it's fine. There is no harm.
What I've noticed talking to so many people over the years, because I'm interested in these kind of things, is most of us, we have thoughts, but we also have a kind of another layer of thoughts, which is trying to control thought, which is repressing thought, which, don't think that. It's like trying not to think of monkeys, you know? Could you speak a little bit about that? Because it seems that for most of us in the West, we are trying to control our minds.
Yes. See, basically you believe there is a controller there who's controlling your thoughts. Now, my stand is that there is no controller at all. But there is a control, like a program, which is controlling your thoughts. But there's no controller. Like your hair grows, you do not take any decision to make your hair grow. Your nails grow, now you are not playing any role in that. The digestive system keeps functioning. You keep breathing. In none of these activities you have a role. So how come you have a role when it comes to your thoughts? So there's nobody there playing any role, there's no controller, but yet there's a control. Now, the moment you realize that there's no controller, it is not that you're going to lose control. The control is still there, so it will take care of all your activities. The only thing is you would be completely clear that there's nobody there inside who's controlling. That is the liberation we are talking about.
I'd like to come back to this question we talked earlier about thought.
Yes.
Because I feel like I'm hearing 2 different perspectives.
Yes.
One is that negative thoughts impact the body.
Yes.
That there are certain kinds of thought that are destructive and other kinds of thought that are liberating. And at the same time, there is the recognition that there is no thinker, that thought is just a spontaneous process and there's no control over it and no one to have the control anyway. These seem to be 2 different statements. Could you clarify a little more about that?
Yes. There is only thought There's no thinker. But the ordinary person suffers the illusion that there's somebody there called the thinker who's thinking. But in reality, there's nobody there. Similarly, you think there's somebody who's seeing. There's nobody there who's seeing. There's only seeing. You think there's somebody there who's hearing. But there's nobody there. There's only hearing. So there's just the experience, that is all. But you have created this concept, this illusion, that there's somebody there who's very necessary, who's very vital, and who's doing all those things. That is the root cause of all your suffering. And you have got to realize directly that no such person exists, and that all things are just going on. And that is the state we call the enlightened state.
And that is synonymous with a decrease of parietal activity.
And that is synonymous with a decrease in the parietal lobes.
I feel a deep peace and silence. I could also call it joy. And when I'm tired, I'm resting. And when it's time to move, the body moves. And I don't really know what it is that makes this body rest, that makes this body move, but there is something that just does it. Yeah, there is no mind interfering. And sometimes it is in the waiting, but there is no waiter. There is just waiting. And in the waiting, there is a disappearing. And it's the same with thoughts. And there are moments where there are no thoughts. There are moments where there is utter silence and a complete clarity around the third eye, or moments of total oneness. And there are times where there are thoughts, but it's like there is nobody to grab the thought. The thought is coming in. Sometimes the thought remains for a while and then it's going, but there is nobody to claim, this is my thought. Yeah, it's just a happening. It's like the wind blowing. I don't know where the thought is coming from. I don't know where it goes to. It's just more coming in and going out.
I have always, for the last 6 years, again and again entered states of intense presence. But the mind has still made a difference between presence and so-called non-presence, between getting lost in the mind and being here now. And now this difference has dissolved, which seems very subtle, but it's very big. Just like Nura said before, every life experience is just part of an ongoing flow that is not personal. This is the closest I could say it. It's life moving through this body in incredible perfection, including doubts, including what Pragyanandaji called the naughty rahasya, including the mind's storms and the depths of silence.
So, once these parietal lobes have decreased past a certain point, there is now the recognition of no entity here. Yes?
Exactly that.
Just thoughts are there without a thinker.
That's all.
But thoughts still continue, don't they? Yeah?
Thoughts would continue. There could be conflicting thoughts, and they do continue. At the next level, conflict ceases, but thoughts continue. At a still higher level, thoughts also cease, and this is a never-ending journey.
Let's focus in on the level of conflict ceases.
Conflict ceases.
What is the conflict? The conflict is between what and what?
Yes, conflict is between where you are and where you want to go.
Right.
You have a wife, you want her to be like this, that is your conflict. You are somebody and you want to become somebody else. That is the conflict. Now when I say conflict ceases, you accept things as they are. You have made friends with the situation, friends with your thoughts, friends with your anger, friends with your violence. Not that you become free of them. You no more struggle with them. You no more struggle to chain them. And that is what I mean when I say the absence of conflict. Not that conflict disappears, but you made friends with it.
And when you say made friends with violence,
yes.
I'm assuming you don't mean that we're going to act violently to other people.
Yes, the fact is the moment you accept that you're violent, the strangest thing is you cease to be violent. As long as you do not accept the fact that you are violent, you are violent. But when you can see violence, what happens is you can also see the danger that violence causes, the harm, the damage it causes. And nobody does that. So you have to accept the fact that there is violence in you and you make friends with it. Because violence is too powerful. There's nothing you could do against it. So you shake hands and say good morning and make friends with it. And strangely you find violence doesn't trouble you. Because violence has been given due respect. So there's no problem. At a higher level, violence just leaves you. It vanishes.
Bhagavan, in Western psychology, over the last few decades, there's been the development of an understanding that we don't actually have one personality, but multiple personalities.
Yes.
It's sometimes called subpersonality theory.
Yes.
And I know that you also speak in this way, that really we are a collection of selves.
Yes,
Could you explain a little bit your understanding of this?
My basic stand is there's no person there, there's no thinker there, there's no controller there. There are only various personalities who float in and float out. They take possession of you and make use of you, your body or your consciousness. And there are times when no personality also is there. That's a still higher state. But to be aware that personalities are merely flowing through you is also the enlightened state. So they come through you and they pass out of you. And they can come from anywhere. So we can create new personalities. We can also destroy existing personalities. Anything could be done because there's no person there. Anybody could walk in, anybody could walk out.
And these personalities could in fact be in conflict with one another, I'm assuming.
Yes, you would be experiencing conflict because these two personalities would be fighting.
And if I understood what you said earlier, the state of what you're calling enlightenment could be there, the lobes could be below this 25 and 30. That conflict between personalities could continue, but now it would be realized that it's not me.
Yes. When the lobes do come down, what you realize is there is conflict going on between two or more personalities you're witnessing from outside the ring. The boxing is going on, but you're watching it.
I see.
One of the most powerful things that happened to me in India was that I became aware of how judgmental I had become. And during the process, I began to see how much I judged others when in effect I was really looking at myself. And that became very, very clear to me. And when I came back, I could see in how I responded to people a definite shift. I mean, I would judge you for breathing on my coffee, you know? And so it got to a point where, you know, those things, when they would come up, when the different personalities that I had, you know, I became aware that I had different personalities that would come up. And these personalities would come up and I'm actually able to see the personality and not unconsciously respond to different things that happened to me in my environment, but I would see the personality come up that would ordinarily respond in a certain way, and then from like an observer position, I can make a choice to respond differently, and I could actually see them come up. To me, that was powerful. It still is.
I've heard you say on a number of occasions that your thoughts are not your thoughts, that there's really just one mind or ancient mind.
Yes, yes, yes.
What is that one mind?
Just like the shirt that you're wearing is not really your shirt. You're not the one who tailored it. You're not the one who grew the cotton which went into it. In fact, the whole universe has gone into it, and still you call it your shirt. So thought has taken millions of years to evolve. It is there in the thought sphere, and we're just borrowing thoughts. So by no stretch of imagination could you call them your thoughts. Because you are not the creator, and it is so complex. A lot of things have gone into creating that thought, like your shirt, and you're merely wearing it. So that's all there is to it. How could it be your thought?
Yes.
You're not the designer, you're not the creator.
Yes. I noticed, just last week, there were a number of visitors from Italy were here. And my wife and I, we were eating every night dinner with the Italian guests. And I can speak a little bit of Italian, so the dinner conversation was happening in Italian. And when I would go to bed at night, I noticed, as I was falling asleep, I was noticing Italian thoughts were passing. And that's when I remembered these thoughts are not your thoughts, borrowed from the dinner conversation.
Actually, people, when they go to certain places, they can pick up the thoughts which are in the thought sphere there. No?
Yeah.
And they would be complete strangers to such thoughts. On one occasion, a gentleman came to me, a 65-year-old man, and he was weeping. I asked him, what's the matter with you? He said, I'm 65, I've been a clean, good man, but the last few hours I'm seized with lustful thoughts, which had never happened to in my life. Then I asked him, did it happen all of a sudden? He said, yes. Then I said, could you tell me which place? Then he told me, so-and-so place. Then I remembered a suicide pact between a boy and a girl who were in love, and they'd committed suicide there. Then I told him, it's exactly because you went there, maybe another 6 hours you'll be free of it. And the man became free of it. So because he went to that spot, he picked up the thoughts there, and he was experiencing it as though they were his thoughts. And the poor man, having led a very spiritual life, was deeply disturbed. And the next 6 hours is completely free, especially after he got this clarity. So thoughts just come and flow.
And would you say that all thoughts are like that, or are there some of the thoughts that we're not picking up, that they're actually arising from the body or the...
They could arise from the body also. Even if they arise from the body, they're still not your thoughts. They could arise from anywhere.
They're all part of the collective mind.
I really enjoyed the Bhagavan's insight and revelation that there's no body here. There's no body, and there's no mind, and there's no body. There are just thoughts. And basically there is no self. That was a breakthrough point for me. I felt, although I, again, heard those words, there was something very obvious about his revelation that I could relate to and take into my Deeksha,
Throughout these interviews, we've been speaking about enlightenment. And I'd like to really focus more on this topic together now. So I want to ask you to summarize briefly, what is enlightenment?
When all personal suffering has come to an end, we would say you are enlightened. We of course make a difference between the enlightened state and enlightenment itself. Now the enlightened state is more like a peak experience, which may or may not result in enlightenment. But enlightenment is a permanent, irreversible state. And the most fundamental thing about enlightenment is there's no more personal suffering. Suffering is there, but it is no more personal. If you see somebody suffer, you also suffer. That is there. But there's no such thing as personal suffering. That is what we would call as enlightenment, which is very different from the enlightened state, which is a peak state, and which is so different from actual enlightenment.
This might shed some light on an interesting thing that happened for me in starting out researching this to write about it. Because when I was here previously, the idea came that it would be great to have a book about Deeksha. So I compiled a list of people to interview for this book. And there are many people in the West, maybe 20 or so, who claim to be in a state of permanent enlightenment. So I thought these must be the obvious people to interview. Some have it written on their website, some were saying it, some putting it on flyers. So I made a list. These are the people who are claiming enlightenment. And I took the list to my dasa, I was working with Pragyanand. And he looked down the list, and I think you have some way of measuring the brain to ascertain if enlightenment is in fact the case. He went down this list of the people claiming enlightenment and said, no, 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 far away, no, 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 like this. And then later we had a conversation, and you confirmed that I had the wrong list. And I was very surprised. All the ones who were saying enlightenment were actually not on the list. So then I said, well, excuse me, has anybody actually reached the state you're talking about? And then you and Pragyanand said, oh, yes, 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 there are many. And you gave me a completely different list. And then I went to these people who you said they are enlightened. And I telephoned them or met with them. And I asked them about their condition. And their response was very much the same in every case. I feel very normal. I feel very relaxed. I really don't feel any particular state. So what they were describing to me was a very natural, just resting with the present moment. So it sounds like there may be some confusion has arisen around what enlightenment is. And it sounds like people claiming enlightenment may in fact not be the enlightened ones. Could you comment on that?
There seems to be some actual confusion. That is, when a yajna is in progress and people get the enlightened state, we used to say, you have made it. From our point of view, if somebody gets the enlightened state, there's every possibility of his becoming enlightened. So the moment he gets the enlightened state and he says, I have got this experience, then we would say, yes, you have made it. Now, what we imply by that is that in course of time, he would become enlightened. Now, for many, it looks like it did not happen. They did not become enlightened. But the state itself is only temporary in nature. It goes away. But these people continue to believe that they are enlightened. So I wouldn't blame them for that. I would say there's a lot of confusion and we have to make things more clear.
Now, you said that it's an ongoing process that results in enlightenment. Does the process also continue after enlightenment?
Yes. Enlightenment is the first step. That is the beginning of the real journey. So first you get the enlightened state or the peak experience, which has to result in enlightenment. And after that, it is a never-ending process. I would say the process ultimately stops only when you merge into the light. Until then, it goes on and on. It will go on while you are on this planet, and after you left the planet, it still continues. So there's no end to it.
I was introduced to come as the teacher for Experience Festival. It was an organization asking me to teach on the Sufi way. So I can share perhaps two experiences very deep. One of these experiences was a few days after the beginning, after one Deeksha. It's happened after 5 minutes perhaps after the Deeksha. Suddenly I feel inside of me a causeless joy, very beautiful joy inside of me coming. And in the same time, I was listening the voice of my mothers. I was like a child, very small child. I was in my houses exactly if I was returning to the back of my birthday. And I feel that I was like a baby, a newborn. And I was so surprised. In the same time, some consciousness was there. And I was also listening some sound out of the blue, like this, so many sound, beautiful sound. And I was so surprised. I stand up, I try to walk to know if some people was around giving this sound. And I get out of my room and I was seeing all the creations have changed. I feel the tree have a new colors. I was understanding the bird, the ant. I want to touch the tree and to communicate, and they was full of love. All the creations was full of love. I was very close and I was able to understand and to communicate with these creations, not through words, but through this kind of love, exactly as perhaps the fish on the sea who feel that he is one with the sea.
Has the way you're speaking about enlightenment, has that changed over time, or has it always been the same that you're speaking about?
It has not changed over time, except that I've been giving different points of view. I've been making the description richer and richer to help people. It is not that the idea is evolving or some concepts have changed. It's not like that. But since there's only a short course there, we cannot talk about everything. So we have this habit of talking a little bit in this course, a little bit in the next course, a little bit this year, a little bit next year. So very often it has led to the impression as though the concept is being changed. Even now, whatever we have spoken to the public is probably less than 1% of what we are capable of speaking. But since there's just no time, and maybe we don't have to speak all those things, we are not speaking about it. But as people evolve, certainly we'll be speaking a lot more to help them.
So, how would somebody know if they are enlightened as opposed to being in an enlightened state?
Basically, if a person has become enlightened, as different from the enlightened state, he should himself know that he has made it. Because he would certainly see a clear difference between what he was earlier and what he is now. All that is required is he has to try to remember how he was in the past, and he will see a definite difference there. And he'll find that something is missing, somebody is not there. That's how he would, but he might not know, unless we define that as enlightenment, he might not know that he'll just feel that there is a difference, that's all. And he goes along living merrily, So the definitions do help him in that sense. To say, yes, something has happened to me.
Yeah, so this seems to be also, Bhagavan, a little bit what has created the confusion is that there have been many people saying, I'm enlightened, so they are convinced they've made it, but actually, according to these brain measurements, they haven't. So
yes, these people seem to have their own idea of enlightenment, and maybe we were also responsible for that, and therefore they declare themselves to be enlightened. And there are also people who are actually enlightened, who know clearly that they are enlightened because they have come and told us, I have made it, I am enlightened, I am not there, and we have checked and we have found that to be true. That also is there. And there are also people who have actually become enlightened and still are not aware that they are enlightened, whom we have had to educate. And then they became clear.
I see.
So all possibilities are there.
So would it be true that there are actually a variety of flavors of enlightenment, that people become enlightened in their own way?
There's a huge variety of flavors. No two people are identical.
Could you say a little bit more about different flavors?
Yes. In some people, what is very characteristic about them is the absence of conflict. In some people, there is a tremendous silence all the time with them. And in some people, there is this unconditional love flowing through them. Some are the state of unconditional joy. So various qualities are predominant in various people. It's not exactly the same, because it depends upon how the parietal lobes are, how the frontal lobes are, and how the general system is functioning, how the energy is flowing to the nadis. So all these things make that difference. Some can be so ecstatic that they cannot even move around. And there are those who are running around in ecstasy. So all varieties are there.
Now, you've spoken about enlightenment as a particular demarcation.
Yes.
But what about after? After the clear, irreversible recognition there's nobody here.
Yes, yes.
What is the continued evolution after that?
The continuation is that you can clearly see that the mind is out there and that it is functioning on its own, and that you can just witness it doing all the work. And normally at this stage we call the mind a small bird, and the one who's witnessing as the big bird. So we would say you are moved into the big bird and you're watching the small bird. But within the small bird there is conflict, there is thought, everything is there. And at the next level of development, the conflict ceases. So as the big bird watches the small bird, there's no conflict in the small bird. And at a higher level, thoughts too have vanished from the small bird. And at a still higher level, the small bird itself has vanished. So it keeps going on that way. And then at one point, the big bird also vanishes, and you feel that you are the universe. So all these things keep happening. But we generally don't talk much about it. People discover it on their own.
Yes, I never heard you speak about birds before.
Yes, yes.
But now I understand it's all about birds.
Yes.
So, Bhagavan...
We do speak about these things in the Indian processes. We keep it much simpler in the Western processes. But in India, we do speak about the small bird and the big bird.
There's actually a television program in America, Bhagavan, for children, where they have a character called Big Bird.
Oh, I see.
I'm going to see that program in a completely different way now.
I see.
Big Bird is more enlightened than I had thought.
I see.
You talk about enlightenment, but I've also heard you use the word God realization.
Yes.
Is that something different from enlightenment?
It is something different from enlightenment. Enlightenment is the basic realization that you don't actually exist. And there's no personal suffering. Because we talk about enlightenment in many different ways. But the commonest definition is there's an end to personal suffering and an end to the feeling that you exist as an individual. But God realization is something totally different, where you realize that there is an entity, a power, with which you could relate and you could get your things done. That is what we call God realization. And ultimately, you becoming that God yourself.
So how does God realization occur? Is it also just a matter of the lobes changing, or?
Yes, the lobes keep changing a lot more. And as the lobes keep changing, ultimately there comes a point when you see that the God whom you're praying to, relating to, is but yourself. First it comes as an insight, then as some kind of realization, and then an actual happening occurs. When the shift happens, then then you're like Christ saying, I and my Father are one. That happens.
So, Bhagavan, you also spoke about oneness.
Yes.
Is a state of oneness or a condition of oneness the same as what you're calling enlightenment, or is that, again, something else?
When you just say enlightenment, we might not call that as oneness. But as your enlightenment becomes deeper and deeper, you come to a point where actually you see that you are the other. That the other completely ceases to exist. That you and the other are actually one. That's when we would say you are in a state of oneness. Right now you might feel, let us say, the tree is there and you are there, and without any running commentary, you're watching the tree. But that is not oneness. The kind of oneness we are talking about is you actually experience the tree, as though you have become the tree. That's when we say you are into oneness.
So just now, Bhagavan, we're sitting here together, having our interview, and you're seeing this tall, skinny fellow who's come.
Yes.
When you look, what do you see?
See, I'm looking from the big bird, as well as sometimes from the small bird. When I am looking from the big bird, I'm watching the whole thing as though I'm an alien, and all these things are going on. And I also find that the small bird, it is aware that it is giving an interview, that somebody is questioning it, so it is trying to use its memory, its understanding, and it is trying to talk. But there's a big bird for which all this does not make any sense at all. And both are going on in a parallel fashion.
So these are three stages then: enlightenment, God realization, and
becoming one with God, or the complete oneness.
Yes, I see.
The total oneness.
Once enlightened, is it possible for one enlightened person to then give this enlightenment to another person?
An enlightened person cannot give it to another. It is only possible if there's a lot of people on the planet are enlightened. If they are enlightened, then it's possible for enlightened people to give it to others.
But you seem to have been born with a specific gift.
Yes, yes.
That you are able to give enlightenment.
Yes. So initially, I took a lot of time to be able to give it to others. And it involved a lot of hard work. And then I've been slowly giving a few people and built up an order of 170 people who are enlightened. Now, with their help, I've been giving it to others. And as others are making it, I'm able to give it to more people. And now we are slowly approaching a point where they will be able to give it effortlessly to others. That is how the phenomenon has been growing.
Now, this is quite an unusual understanding, because in many different traditions and teachings, it's been said that enlightenment happens on its own.
Yes.
And it's not spoken very much that enlightenment can simply be given like this.
Yes, yes.
It seems to be a new thing. Can you explain a little more?
Yes. Because enlightenment, wherever it has happened, not because the person did this or did that. And very often, in spite of what he did, it happened. So it has been a happening. But I do believe that in ancient times, enlightenment was being given by the masters to their students. But somehow it was all lost. So I wouldn't say it's totally new, but I would say it's very, very ancient. Thereafter, what seems to have been happening was, it was just happening here and there across the planet. But now it seems to have come back, whereby it is possible to give it to another.
Bhagavan, if you are able to give enlightenment to another, why don't you just give it to everybody?
Yes. At this point of time, I am not able to give it to everybody. I am able to give it to a few people who are better prepared to receive it. But I do believe a short while from now, it would be possible to give it to everybody. It's not me giving it to everybody. People who have made it would be giving it to everybody.
Let's talk about this. You said it's possible now to give it to a few people who are better prepared to receive it.
Yes.
How can one prepare oneself to be ready to
Yes.
receive it?
People who have excellent relationships, and people who have a lot of spiritual discontent, who are not satisfied with all that they might have in the world, and who have been really seeking hard, these are the people who are best prepared to receive this. And it's easy for us to give it to them. But otherwise, it's quite difficult even now. But as more and more people are making it, we find that even people who are less qualified are able to make it.
I see. So, and you've said primarily it's the relationship with the mother and father that needs to be set right.
Essentially, that's the most important thing, because we have found that wherever the process has not worked, invariably it has led to a problem between the seeker and the father, or the seeker and the mother. Then the process just stops. So we get back to working on that, and then once again the process proceeds.
Are there any other ways that one can help, that the individual can help or hinder the process of enlightenment from the side of the aspirant or the seeker?
Yes.
What can be done or not done?
If the seeker has not abused his body, then it would be very, very helpful. If the seeker has been abusing his body too much, then also it becomes difficult.
What do you mean by abusing the body?
Abusing, in case he has drunk a lot, he has smoked a lot, he has used drugs. If he has done all these things, then it does become difficult. But on the other hand, if he has not taken recourse to these things, the process goes on much more smoothly.
I think as well as these things, of course, these do impact the body a lot, but the thing that many people suffer from in the West is stress, just working too much, too hard, going too fast. Does this also get in the way?
That also is quite a hindrance. If you're stressed out, or if you're too much worried, then also it becomes a problem. But we do not complain against these things. We try to overcome these things.
I see. Right. So, Bhagavan, many people, many of us have become really fixated on this idea of enlightenment. And it can become like another ambition. You know?
Yes.
I want more money, I want a better job, I want a nicer car, I want a great marriage, and we run out of these desires, I want enlightenment. Does the effort or the desire to become enlightened, does it help or does it become a hindrance?
It becomes very often a hindrance, and it prevents you from becoming enlightened. So if only you could see the damage which this kind of seeking is causing, then that could be of help. But really you cannot be free of seeking. The seeking is there, but all that you must see is how the seeking is preventing you from becoming enlightened. If you could get that insight, then it makes our job very easy.
Is there anything to do or is there nothing to do?
In fact, really there's nothing to do, But the problem is people have no idea about not doing anything. So they feel they must do something to get there. But that very effort is the self. They don't seem to realize that. They want to end the self, but the effort to end the self is the self. Somehow they must get the insight that that is the self. Then maybe suddenly it could stop.
This is where there must be grace, isn't it?
Yes, the grace comes in. It stops it for you.
Yes.
I've been a spiritual seeker my whole adult life, and I've done so much spiritual work, and I'd come to a place where I realized that I was just at the end of the road, that there was no more that I could do, that I'd come to the place where the next step could only be taken by grace. I could only be carried that next step by grace. Again, there was something inside that was just so much wanting this freedom to happen here and feeling so helpless, and I kept begging and begging, please, please let it happen. And it got to be, so there was only 3 days left, and I kind of started to panic. There's only 3 days left, please. Help me with this. And I kind of got into a big drama in myself, and at one moment in my heart I just cried out, I can't bear to be separate from you for one more moment. And then immediately I started laughing hysterically because I saw who's separate from who. And I just saw the absurdity of it. This imaginary someone that was begging to no longer be separate, and it was not separate, it couldn't be separate, that was the presence too, and that it was all one big play, like a theater, just a play, and all of the characters, all of the actors were being played by the same one presence. So after that understanding came, there was just a deep relaxation inside. Finally there was just a rest. There was just a deep rest. And then I didn't feel a division within myself. If the mind was talking or different feelings were happening, there was no resistance to them, because the presence doesn't need to resist itself. It was just there, and it didn't matter. And something was just free. And that's what I feel, is there's something just empty and open inside now and free. And there's just love here. There's just love. And I see all of these parts of myself and other people and everything with just love and compassion.
Bhagavan, what exactly do you mean by the word self?
When I use the word self, I use it in the sense of this feeling of separateness from the other. That's what I mean by the word self. And it's my understanding that it is arising out of the way the senses are functioning. And if the sensory coordination is slowed down a bit, the self disappears. You no longer feel you're separate.
So it's actually an illusion.
It's actually an illusion. The sense of separateness is an illusion.
Hallucination.
Because in man's natural state, you cannot have this illusion, because that is not the truth. And man has acquired this illusion, and ever since he's been suffering. Ultimately, we can trace all the wars, the environmental degradation, and the poverty, everything back to this illusion.
How do you see what's coming next?
Yes.
How do you see all this unfolding?
I see this as a people's movement, where spiritual power would percolate to the level of the ordinary masses, and that I expect everybody to be a mystic, everybody to be enlightened, and everybody to have enormous spiritual power to do miracles. So I believe that we'll be creating a world where there will be no spiritual hierarchy, where everybody is his own guru and everybody is his own Shishya. I think we're heading for that.